Hey everybody, let's jump into our tutorial on variable assignment in C#. So I have Visual Studio pulled up here, and starting off I'd like to focus on this line right here, this hello world line. What's happening here is that we're console write line prints things out to the terminal like we've seen in the past, or the console window, whatever you want to call it. And it does that by accepting what's called a parameter in between these two parentheses. And the parameter we've passed it is this hello world value. What we can also do is we can pass it a variable name. So we can pass it first name. And so I'm going to hit play up here, and we're going to bring up the console window over here, the terminal. And what do you think is going to be displayed in the console window? Will it be first name or will it be Pete? Let's hit the button. Okay, so as you can see, Pete is displayed in the terminal window. So the reason that Pete is displayed is because Pete is the value of first name. As you can remember in our previous videos, we talked about how first name is the human readable variable name, but Pete is the value. So whenever we pass in a variable into a function, and this is a function, and we'll talk about these later, but the purpose of a variable is to house a value, and that value is the important part. So I'm going to close this terminal out. So the nice thing about variables is that once we have one declared, we can put any value we want into it, as long as that value is the same type. So, for example, with this first name variable, later on, we can just call the first name variable by its name, and we can say first name, and we don't need to use the type anymore, because you only need to use the type when you declare the variable. So this is variable declaration. What we're about to do is called variable assignment. And you can assign any string value to this first name variable now. So this can be anything you want at all. And now this variable houses this new string. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy console write line here. I'm going to paste it down here now. So what do you think? I'm about to hit the play button again. And what do you think will happen? What will we see in the console window? Will we see Pete or anything at all? Yes, so we see both of them. And that's because in the beginning of our program here, we wrote the first name variable and assigned it to Pete. We printed that out here, and then, so that prints out to the console, and then we reassigned first name to be anything at all. And now you'll notice that when we printed it out this time, it printed out anything at all instead of Pete. It did not print out Pete anything at all as one line. It replaced the previous variable, or the previous value. Sorry. So now I'm going to close out this terminal, and I'm going to take away this first console write line. So now when I hit this play button, what should we see? Should we see Pete and anything at all? Should we see just Pete, or should we see just anything at all? Let's see. We see anything at all. So that's because we don't have that first console write line on this line. What happens is that we declare a variable named first name, and we give it the initial value of Pete. Later on, we use the process of variable assignment to give first name the new value of anything at all. And we can do that with all these other variables too. So let's pull up a couple more console write lines, and we'll start off by saying first value. And we're going to print out first name, we'll print out age, we'll print out is alive, and we'll print out net worth. So this will be, we'll print out all of the first values of all of these variables. And let's take these variables after we print them out here, and let's reassign them to something else. So for first name, let's actually make this a name. We'll call it Andrew. We'll give Andrew the age of, 45. Is alive. We will say false. Sorry, it's getting a little dark maybe. Then for net worth, we will say, $100.50. Okay, so we have a red squiggly line right here. Now, why is there a red squiggly line right here? Because age up here is an integer. And remember, an integer is a number. And so this makes sense. Down here, we tried to assign age a different type of value. So we tried to assign it the type of value of string. An integer, remember, an integer type variable can't take a string. It doesn't match. The value of the variable has to match the type, remember. And so the value of a number obviously doesn't match the value of a word. So we will take these quotations out, and you can see that that red line is now gone because the type of this value is an integer, and that matches the type of the variable. Okay, so let's grab all of these console write lines. I'm going to paste them down here. And we're going to switch this to second value. And let's see what prints out. I'll close this terminal before we do. So let's see. Cool. So we have our first value, and we see Pete, 33, as it should be, true, as it should be, 4.6. And then we have our second value, and our new assignments are Andrew, 45, false, and 150, 100.5. So that is variable assignment. And actually, when we initially declare these variables, we are actually also assigning them here, because you can also declare a variable like this without any initial first value. When you do that, it's considered null, where it doesn't have a value, and you can't use it in functions like writeLine because if there is no value, this variable, this memory bucket, has nothing in it. So that's why I like to always, when I can, I like to give our variables an initial value of something. It's just a good practice to have.